Welcome to the Athena 40 podcast, Conversations with Women from the MENA region. This series is in partnership with NOMA Women Advancement Establishment, a United Arab Emirates-based organization founded on the vision of an equitable world for women. In this series, we are hosting exceptional women from the Middle East and North Africa. They are thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and policymakers. And I am your host, Elizabeth Filippouli, founder of Athena 40, an international platform connecting women leaders.
First of all, I would like to say that I'm delighted to welcome you to this campaign, which is in partnership with NAMA. May I ask you to state your name and your professional title?
It's my honor to be with you here, and I'm very honored to be part of this. My name is Nawal Al-Hosany. I am the UAE Permanent Representative to the International Renewable Energy Agency, IRENA.
Very much a pleasure to have you, and I was really looking forward to this conversation because you have an absolutely remarkable career, and you're someone who cares about a better world. But before we get there, I would like to invite you to share with us how the journey began. Who inspired you to go for such an exceptional professional journey?
I think it always starts from home. And I was always inspired by my mother and my father, God bless his soul. My mom did not have a formal education. She knows how to read and write, but she never was in school. The same with my father, but they were very passionate about the education and the knowledge of their children. So this has been an absolute drive for them. I was also extremely inspired by the founder of our nation, Sheikh Zayed, God bless his soul, and may God protect her, Sheikh Fatima, his wife. They have put everything they had and they have into the empowerment and the development of the nation. And since day one, women empowerment and the role of women in the development of the country has been a priority. Women's education, women's health, women's creating opportunities for women has been on our national agenda from the day that the UAE has been established. So this has always, for me, was a motive and inspiration because it showed me that we really have no limitations. You know, whatever you want to do, anything you want to be, any career you want to pursue, you know, all the roads are open, all the support is there. So it started from there. I was inspired by their achievements. I was inspired by their passion. I was inspired by their dedication and their vision for the UAE and for the women of the UAE. And I was given a lot of opportunities. I was extremely blessed. And every time I'm asked this question, I have this one answer, which I truly believe in. I am a product of this country. I was raised in this country. I went into government school, public schools. I went to the UAE University, which is, again, a government school. When I went abroad to do my PhD, I was sponsored by the UAE government. So every knowledge and every opportunity I had has been provided to me by the leadership of this country. And the journey started from there, and the opportunities and all the doors that I passed through were provided and opened by our leadership.
Did you have a particular inclination when you were at school, you were in your teens? How did that love towards science develop?
I think it was a combination. I think I was blessed that since I was very young, I was very good in math and physics and scientific subjects. You know, math has been for me very easy from day one. Languages were easy for me, and as you know, English is the language of science. So for me, you know, getting into reading in English or learning in English was not a challenge. So I was blessed with that, as I say, in my genes, let's put it this way. I was also blessed being raised in a family that never differentiated between a boy and a girl. So, you know, my father never felt that he needed to treat my sisters or my brothers indifferent because for him we were the same. What mattered to him was how committed, how passionate we are about the subject that we are studying. So I developed very early days passion for and interest in science, in math, and physics. And when I finished my high school, for me, it was a normal thing to go into engineering. It was never something that, I had to think about. It just, I scored very high in my baccalaureate or international baccalaureate, I think that's what they call it in the UK. And that opened for me all the scientific disciplines if I was interested in. And and it was for me a natural thing. At that time, I didn't really, the options for me were either engineering or medicine. And I was more into engineering than medicine. So I wanted to get into engineering.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I assume that you were a minority in the class. And I'm actually saying that from my own experience. When I did my degree at Oxford, at Zayed Business School, which was innovation and strategy, we were 4 women in a class of 48 people. And that was in 2011. And, we thought, how come and why? I mean, we've progressed so much. We have capabilities and talents across all different areas. Why is it that women are a bit put off, from themes and industries and disciplines like innovation, technology, science? And what was your experience back then and, of course, today?
So I am going to correct you, because when it comes to the UAE, actually the picture is very different. We have the highest number of female graduating from universities and from science fields such as science, engineering, medicine. So we were a majority. When I was at the UAE University, it was, we had our college was girls' college. So we had the boys' campus and we had the girls' campus. But our numbers in the girls' campus were higher than the boys' campus. So when we graduated, our batch was much more than the boys. And this continued, I'm not going to tell you the year, but it was a long time ago when I graduated from university. But this trend continued until today. Until today, we have more girls graduating from engineering and science discipline than boys in the UAE. The very recent example now we have at Masdar Institute of Science and Technology, for example. Masdar Institute of Science and Technology, we had the balance more towards girls, like it's almost 50-50, but a little bit more girls than boys. And when it came to Emiratis, we had even more females than male students. So in the UAE, and again, this credit goes to the leadership, because since day one, we never had this discrimination. So, opportunities were there and the doors were open. So in the UAE, we never had a problem with having more women in the science field. I'm sure you heard about the UAE Mars mission. Mars mission, if you see the team that's working on it, you will see more abayas than dishtashas. Abayas is the black thing I'm wearing, and dishtasha is the white thobe, which the men wear. So when you take a picture of the team, you will see more black than white. And this is everywhere. My team, when I was running the Zayed Sustainability Prize, were all girls except our Director General, which was Dr. Sultana at that time. So we never had this problem here in the UAE, and we never faced it. But we are very much aware. The UAE is aware that, or we are aware as a responsible nation, that there is so much needs to be done to encourage and to empower more women into this field. And we have initiated a lot of projects. We worked with our partners, and we did a lot of campaigns to ensure that women are encouraged to get into the field, focusing on, for example, my sector, which is sustainability and renewable energy. A few years ago, when I was still at Masdar, we launched WISER, which is Women in Sustainability, Environment and Renewable Energy, and that aims to get and engage more women in the sector. With IRENA, we've done a lot of gender studies to ensure that we are having more women in the field, either in wind or in solar or in different technologies. So yeah, I am aware that there are sectors that is male-dominated. I worked in many times in male-dominated sectors or in fields. But when it comes to studies and what graduates and who graduates from these fields, we have more women. Do they get into the working? Like once they graduate, do they go and work on in these sectors, or they prefer to stay in other sectors? That's a different question. So regarding your questions about education, we have more graduates from the engineering and science field than men. But once we go into the working environment, we don't see the same image, and we try now to encourage more women to pursue their careers in those fields and not only get the studies.
First of all, I'm glad you corrected me, because I'm one who wants to see stereotyping and cliches, broken down. So thank you for that. And I'm glad that we are able to change perceptions and perspectives. I think this is very, very important. When it comes to sustainability, you mentioned that word, and it is a term that has become very trendy. Sustainable development goals, and let's focus on sustainability, and let's, do things around the SDGs. But it is not a trend. This is a need for our world, for our planet. I would like to ask you, how do you define sustainability? And how, if you think that sustainability is going to acquire either a new meaning or a new sense of urgency in the post-COVID-19 era?
For me, sustainability is a better way to live your life. It's how you have the highest quality of life with your minimum impact on the environment. Because, you can balance. You need to balance it, and you can balance it, and it depends on the choices you make. So that's for me what sustainability is. I think we've seen what's happening in the world post-COVID. We've seen how, what's the effects of climate change. There are so many efforts and initiatives to show how close we are to catastrophe when it comes to climate emergency. I think a few weeks ago, they unveiled a clock at New York to count down exactly how long the world has left to act before the climate emergency basically alters our own existence. And they claim it's 7 years and 100 days, the time I looked at it, depending on when it was published. It tells us that, we do have a problem, and we need to do something about this problem. And it is scientific. It's not a myth. And we need to act very, very quickly. So for us to achieve our targets when it comes to sustainable development goals, which, to your point, maybe now is being threatened by COVID-19, we need to act. We need to action. Making commitments and speaking about pledges is not going to be enough. During the lockdown, everybody saw how the air got cleaner, how the waterways were cleaner, how pollution levels and temperature actually were regulated with this lockdown. So COVID-19 did show us that climate change is a consequence of our habits, human behaviors. And that is a great takeaway from all of us. And hence we need to change our actions and be responsible for our actions to be able to achieve a positive change.
You mentioned Masdar before, and your career at Masdar, and of course now you're part of the IRENA, which is the International Renewable Energy Agency. You are the permanent representative for the UAE. I would like us to understand a bit more about Masdar, its operations, activities and goals, and of course now you are focusing your energy and your experience to an international level. And I'm sure that the UAE, I know it's very active and very dynamic in renewable energy initiatives, which we can talk about later on. But tell us about Masdar and tell us about IRENA.
So Masdar was launched in 2006, and it was part of the UAE's initiatives to diversify its economy into a knowledge-based economy. It was part of our leadership commitments towards addressing a global challenge, which is climate change, but also another global challenge, which is energy security. And with energy security, you need to look into both demand and supply. And it is connected to, again, climate change, because we cannot address climate change without integrating and introducing renewables into energy mix. So renewable energy is a key enabler of any action that's taken to address climate change. And that's the way we believe it. Globally, we have an increasing population with an increasing demand on energy. So it doesn't matter how much more energy we generate, clean energy we generate, unless we address supply and manage supply, it's not going to be enough. So that's why this has been the thinking behind the creation of Masdar. And this is why when Masdar was created, it was created to address this full value chain. So Masdar was about looking at new technologies for renewable energy and creating projects, either utility scale projects, because you need to drive innovation by having a utility scale and create demand and reduce price by having those big projects, but also doing the small projects to address energy access in remote areas. So you will have Masdar, building 0.5 gigawatt plants somewhere in an offshore in the UK, for example, and at the same time building maybe a 30 megawatt plant in a small island in the Pacific or in the Caribbean, because of where and how it's needed. So looking at renewable energy as a utility scale and as a small scale. One of the major contributors to emissions are cities, and that's why for Masdar, focusing on sustainable real estate was part of the solution. And this is why Masdar was created also around a city, which is Masdar City. A Masdar City is basically a blueprint of how cities needs to be designed and built to minimize, again, create a great value and a great environment for their residents, but also minimize their impact through reducing their energy consumption by introducing efficient appliances and efficient building design and sustainable building design. And putting all those solutions and innovation. And the city became like a hub for pilots and studies to see what suits the UAE, because again, those technologies are being designed and developed in many countries, but we need to know what works here for our climatic conditions, with the dust, with the heat, with the humidity. So there's so much, there's so much needs that's specific for the UAE that we need to address UAE and the region clearly. So that was the basic thinking about Masdar. At the heart of Masdar City was, when it was created, was the Masdar Institute of Science and Technology, because you needed to have the education and the research and development arm to develop human capacity, but also to do research and development that is needed for the advancement of this sector. So in summary, the aim of Masdar is to advance and accelerate the adaptation of renewable energy in the UAE and globally through the advancement of those technologies. When there has been a global consensus that we need an international organization that focus on sustainability and renewable energy, and there has been a global bid on where to host this organization, and the UAE, to the surprise of many countries, basically put its request and its bid to host IRENA. And there was a semi-global consensus for the UAE to win that bid to host IRENA. And IRENA now, which is the International Renewable Energy Agency, is headquartered in Abu Dhabi, the first ever international organization to be headquartered in the Middle East. It's almost reached global membership. There are more than 160 countries members and many in accession. And it celebrated its 10th anniversary with the 10th Assembly actually this January. It feels that it has been a decade ago. So this is what IRENA provides supports to its members for policy, for technology advice, for funding facilities, because as an example, we have the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development and IRENA Facility Fund for the IRENA members, where anybody can apply for this fund. So it is a platform for the members to engage on debate and policy discussion and technology discussion related to renewable energy and sustainability. This is in a very, very nutshell of what the two organizations are about. Masdar and hosting IRENA in the UAE is only part of the story when it comes to the UAE's effort when it comes to renewable energy and sustainability. Now we have, to your point, we have, I think, one of the largest per capita investment in renewable energy and sustainability, either in our projects here or globally. The UAE is, I always say that because it's something that makes me extremely proud of what we do. We're the only OPEC country that doesn't only export oil into the world, but also exports and build renewable energy projects around the world. We started the journey with renewable energy and sustainability, not because we had to, not because we were mandated globally, but because we felt, it's part of the future and we needed to be in that future race when it comes to an industry that is very, very important to the sustainable future for all.
Thank you for adding that. I couldn't agree more that humanity is running out of time. And not everyone is taking that seriously, as we know. So huge congrats for the work that you have in place. What countries do you have operations in as the renewable energy initiatives?
What countries the UAE is supporting? Many countries. We have, I think, I'm not sure of the numbers, but I can send you the numbers. But we are, we have plants in partnership in the UK, in Spain, in North America, in Morocco, in Egypt, in African countries, in the Caribbean islands. We had a fund for the Caribbean islands, $50 million. We had a fund for the Pacific islands, $50 million. We have plants operating as far as Samoa and Tonga and in the Bahamas. So there's so many countries, but I can send you the numbers. So we have plants which is large plants, and we have smaller plants that aims to provide energy access. The reason we have a large footprint when it comes to renewables globally is because, and this is very unique to the UAE, renewable energy became an integral part of our international aid efforts. When the UAE commits to provide aid to countries around the world, we help by building sustainable infrastructure through renewable energy plants and renewable energy projects. And we leverage the experience of organizations such as Masdar to help partner with the government in building those plants around the world.
I had attended the Dubai Government Summit a couple of years ago, and I had the opportunity to see myself some of the pioneering projects that you have in place and how you invite innovation and new technologies and people to apply or propose solutions for challenges that are touching on, sustainability, environment, and, green sustainability projects. We talked about the schools before, we talked about education, and we talked about youth. And as everything begins, at the family level and school level, do you have any initiatives to engage children into sustainability projects, to educate them into these policies and into the great projects that the UAE has underway?
I was very happy one day. My little nephew, I think he was in grade 3 or 4, he came to his mom to explain. He was explaining to his mom what Masdar was doing, because we made sure that all the UAE sustainability efforts and initiatives is being part of their curriculum. One of my, nieces or nephews, they were very happy to send me my picture in their textbook, because they were educating them about initiatives around Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week. And that was the time, I was involved in it. And one of the things that we launched was WISER, which is Women in Sustainability, Environment and Renewable Energy. And they were actually teaching them about that. So this is, again, part of why the UAE is very pioneering, because nothing happens in silo. The efforts to advance and incorporate and introduce sustainability within the community hasn't been done on a technical level only. It has been basically cascaded down to all sectors. So everybody understands how they are part of it. Once we do something, it's done on a very global. It's from all the way from the leadership to the grassroots level. So you will have Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, our crown prince, for example. When we started Masdar, our technicians were in his residence, in his house, while his family in the house, putting solar on their roof while they were in the house. At the same time, we had children in the schools getting educated about, what does it mean to protect your environment, why it's important to protect your environment, how they can be part of it. We launched campaign. We launched many campaigns to engage with the youth. One of the platforms which Masdar initiated when Masdar was created as well is what started as the World Future Energy Summit and now grew into becoming an Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week, is looking at the whole community. So Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week, which is a week that usually happens every January that has different pillars addressing water, waste, energy, and innovation cutting across. They focus on all segments of society. So you have the business people, you have the academia, you have everybody who is a policymakers, decision makers, heads of state, everybody who is involved in the sector. But also we had youth and we had pillars related to initiatives. So every school gets to be invited to visit the exhibition at that time. So you will have, children from grade 1 all the way to grade 12 attending and visiting the exhibitions of the to just learn and know what's happening. And this is, again, in everything we do. So, youth has been an integral part of every policy, every decision that we make. IRENA, as, being hosted here in the UAE, we wanted to make sure that they are connected with all our segments of the society. So IRENA signed an MOU with the Ministry of Education to help develop curriculum about innovation and about technology and about sustainability and renewables to the schools and engage with the school, not only in the curriculum, but also to understand how international organizations work. So we always host some of the youth in the assembly and the council meetings to get them to see and understand, how those topics get to be debated, how they can be part of decision making. So the youth is definitely very important and an integral part of every forum and every platform we have.
You mentioned before, and I wanted us to go back to, women in the UAE, very talented and highly educated women in the Emirates. So there is a discrepancy between the numbers of women who graduate from universities with distinction, with truly international level degrees, and then those that get, absorbed into the workforce. Their capacity, their expertise, their know-how is not, utilized, taken advantage of as much as it could be, it should be. Why is that? And are there efforts underway to change that?
I think the fact that we have 8 young women occupying prominent cabinet position in the UAE government is a great testimony to the progressive vision of our leadership. It is, and it's a demonstration of, the forward-thinking approach that our young women who have been empowered to bring new perspectives and ideas to the top table of our country's decision-making process. There is, they are holding some of the most prominent portfolios, such as youth, such as water, such as food security, and many other important positions. So women in the UAE are, holding an extremely important and prominent position. We have, I think, in the government sector, I believe the latest statistics, we have more than 30% of women working in the different sectors, and most of them in middle or senior management levels. By law now, every board needs to have at least one female. By law now, 50% of our Federal National Council has to be women. So there is, from the leadership, there is a huge push and support to engage more women in those positions. Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid has said at one point, I would like to see 50% of my cabinet as females. So there is a great support from the leadership sometimes, and we see a lot of examples, and that's what we are trying to change through initiatives such as NAMA and other initiatives. There is sometimes a reluctance from women themselves to advance their careers and being hesitant to be in certain sectors. And that's, I think, where we need to maybe work by providing maybe different policies. And again, we are working on it. The UAE has the Gender Balance Council that is looking at, enabling policies and procedures and changing legislation that may be restricting or maybe and unconsciously stopping women from progressing their careers. So we are doing it again in a holistic way by having the right policies in place and legislation to enable more women, by showcasing and positioning women in prominent positions and showcasing them as role model and encouraging them to be out there and speak and to be present. And from the leadership by providing and opportunities and platforms and showing them that everything is possible. We had a female representation in all sectors from day one in the government. We had women in the police in the 70s. And when I say in the 70s, the UAE was established in 1971. So since the day the UAE was established, we had female representations in every sector, even in the areas where you have male-dominated sectors by nature, such as the police or engineering or construction. We have construction companies led by women and owned by women. We have the oil and gas industry. We have 2 CEOs in our oil and gas companies that are part of ADNOC. We have many women on boards related to oil and gas sector. I got to be invited, and many other, female or senior females in my position, to speak to younger professional and younger engineers, to encourage them, and invited by men. So I was once invited by an oil and gas company, by the leadership of that company, who were mainly men, to speak to the young engineers, to encourage them to go to sites and to show them how important it is to be present on those sites. So this empowerment and this engagement is a partnership. It's not only women encouraging women to be in every sector. In the UAE, you see example of men and women together working to ensure that women are having equal opportunities and pushing their own perception of what they are capable of, and challenging their own self-consciousness about what they can and what they cannot do.
One of the projects that we have in partnership with NAMA is mentoring, because we strongly believe in the value of having someone in one's life, at whatever stage we are in life, to support us with advice, with insights, with encouragement. We tend, especially women, to doubt ourselves too much. We have incredible capabilities, and so having someone who will help you get to the next level of your career or life choices is very important. What do you think of, the importance of mentoring? And did you have a mentor who helped you, supported you in your career?
I think it's a very important mentorship, and having the right mentor and the right support system in your life is very, very important. I think we as human beings, we are the average of the people we surround ourselves by. So it's very important that we are surrounding ourselves with the right people, with the right mindset and the right attitude. I was, again, very, very blessed in my life to be surrounded with supportive people who either on a, I never had like a structured professional mentorship program, but I always sought mentorship and I always sought advice in different phases of my career. Either when I started, clearly when I was a student, I had the mentorship in the education system. But once I started my career, I always sought and looked to the person I looked up to. So if there was a professor that I'm working with, I always liked and admired the way they are managing or handling themselves, I would reach out to them and I ask them and I seek their advice and feedback about, how I'm performing or how should I address that. When I moved into one of my first jobs was with Abu Dhabi Police. And again, it was a male-dominated. When I joined, I was the only female at the whole floor. So it was just so weird. And I had a very supportive boss at that time. He passed away, but it wasn't for his support and it wasn't for his encouragement and his advice on how to manage difficult situation, I don't think I would have been here today. When I went to the UK to do my PhD, I sought mentorship from my supervisors, my colleagues on how to manage and deal with different things. So it wasn't one mentor. I think it was you need different people and you need different opinions for different things of life, and people complement each other. So I always seek support, and I think I am who I am today because of all the advices and all the support and all the encouragement and all the feedback that I seeked and that I received from people who acted as my mentors or acted as my advisors or were my friends throughout my life. I always repeat this sentence, and I think it's very important to remember that every contact leaves a trace. This is something we learned in forensics. and it's true in every sense of life. Every contact you have with a person will leave a trace on you, and you will leave a trace on somebody. So you will always need to be conscious of the messages that you are receiving from, your surroundings, but also of the messages that you are sending to people around you and to the environment around you, because it's very important.
My final question is about your vision for the world. I don't know if you would like to combine it with concern, for the world, especially now that we're going through this very tricky period of coronavirus. It is an ongoing frustration. It inevitably is impacting a variety of sectors, our economies, the way we work, the way we travel. We don't travel at all, perhaps, these days. But as we were saying before, it is also creating opportunities, and perhaps it gets us into this mode of rethinking our visions for the world and our accountability as citizens for the world. But share with us, what is your vision for the world, and how do you link it to what you do every day?
I think what you use, the word you use, which is a concern, I think I will start with that. I think the main concern that we are having now, that the knowledge and the acknowledgement that it is the fact that it could be too late for us to reverse the devastating impact of climate change. Because it tells us that everything we need to know, we need to be cautious about the impact that we have on our planet. 2020 was the most extreme year we had for many reasons, but it was the extreme when it comes to the Earth's temperature in the history of our planet. Until now, we still have people acting and talking as if climate change is a myth, it's a hoax. It's mind-blowing to think that in this day, at age, there is, and with all the scientific evidence and proof, we still have people who are dismissing them so recklessly. So, in my opinion, the conversation on renewable energy solutions and the global energy transition must come front and must be center in all policy-making dialogues. It needs to be, to prevent the wars happening to our Earth, our planet, because, we do not have plan B. We don't have plan B.
Is there anything else that you would like to add as part of this conversation?
Well, again, we really cannot achieve the Paris Agreement goals in a piecemeal fashion. More leaders need to commit unreservedly to climate action. I was, to be honest, pleasantly surprised, and I was happy to hear yesterday China stating at the UN General Assembly, they're stating that they are aiming to hit the peak emissions before 2030, and they are going to target carbon neutrality by 2060. That is, a statement of real intent, but now needs to see how it's going to be supported with actions to so. But the message is very clear. The UAE, we demonstrated our commitment to the UN SDGs and to the Paris Agreement goals, many, many times. But again, until we have international consensus and widespread agreement, we cannot hope to reverse the tide of climate change. So I would love to end with this. We are all responsible, and we all need to be part of the solution, as we all were part of the challenge.
Thank you very much for this conversation.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to seeing you in person soon.
Likewise. And I think that, what you shared with us are ideas and projects and facts which are very informative and very enlightening.
Thank you for listening to the Athena 40 podcast, Conversations with Women from the MENA region, brought to you in partnership with NAMA Women Advancement Establishment. If you want to get in touch with us, please email us on info@athena40.org. That is info@athena40.org. For NAMA's work, please visit www.namawomen.ae. Keep well, stay inspired and motivated.